Everybody? Yep. Everybody? Okay, let's do it.
Tell me more about that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Delray Beach's regular commission meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 15th, and 2023 at 4 p.m. Please call the roll.
Mr. Frankel?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Boylston?
Present.
Ms. Burns?
Here.
Mayor Petrolia?
Here, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any changes to the agenda? If not, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
All right, moving on to presentations. We have one, and this is for the 35th Annual Downtown Delray Beach Festival of the Arts presentation. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to briefly introduce this topic because, of course, this is in response to direction previously offered by the City Commission to no longer close east of the federal highways, and the big event, of course, that's associated with that direction is the annual Festival of the Arts, and the organizers of the event, Mr. Allen, and members of his team are here to briefly share with the Commission what the anticipated vision is so that they can make their appropriate arrangements in that regard. Again, for informational purposes only, but to keep the Commission informed in response to the direction you've all offered earlier this year.
Very good.
So with that, we have a brief slide presentation. I think is in position with the Department of Information Technology. So if you all can please come forward.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Helene Stillings. I'm with the Howard Allen team. I've been with them almost 40 years. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the esteemed City Commission and the hardworking city staff that you've provided us this opportunity to produce the Downtown Delray Festival for the past 33 years. The show has become one of the top fairs in the USA, and its signature event is very popular with residents as well as artists. A survey is done, and it was established that this event brought more than $2 million in non-art related sales for the merchants in downtown Delray. This created the daytime traffic visiting downtown. For the first 33 years of the show, it was held on Atlantic, just east of US 1, and the show is stretched over the bridge and ended at Andrews. Obviously, you don't want to close the bridge anymore, and we understand that. We would like to close Atlantic at 5th, detour to 2nd. You might want to put that other one up there, please. Detour to 2nd, go east to Swinton. We can leave Swinton open to traffic, and then we would like to go east on Atlantic, east of Swinton to 5th and Atlantic. And the detour is shown on the map. I appreciate this opportunity. We have a beautiful show that is coming. We'd like to have the privilege of continuing the great tradition. And thank you for your time. Being as that the location is changing or the site is changing, and the show will probably be 1/3 less than we normally have. We usually get about 300 artists. We're probably down to about 200 with the new site.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there anybody from the city that will be doing any kind of a presentation, or is this it?
No, this is it for the Commission because it does have to engage the Special Events Technical Advisory Committee process and those other details. So all other matters are then administrative. But again, because of the direction having been offered, as I just discussed, thought it would be appropriate for the Commission to be aware of what's being contemplated.
Okay, so are we contemplating going then west of Swinton on this one?
I don't believe so.
Okay, because is this west of Swinton here? It looks like it is because the tennis center is involved. You can see.
No, those are adjustments to be made during the aforementioned CTEC process.
Okay. So the proposed route of the art show is closing Atlantic from Southwest 6th all the way through to Swinton? I'm not following. So let me ask you a question. So you're not going to be going from Swinton to Fifth. Okay, you're Fifth Avenue, meaning the Federal Highway, yes?
We would like to go east of Swinton to Fifth and Atlantic.
Gotcha. Okay. So that would be to Federal Highway, so
Right.
to speak. I was going in the opposite direction, trying to figure out, because I'm looking at the tennis center and thinking, how is that?
Actually, I thought it should have been this way instead of this way.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Makes sense. It seems to me that if we need the extra space that are they losing space ground? I know there's a shift. First of all, the shift is now coming to the west versus to the east. It used to be just at the bridge and then over the bridge to Andrews. Now we're coming into the area where it's, west of the Federals, east of Swinton, which is kind of where we do a lot of our festivals, if you will, so that it doesn't interrupt traffic flow. If that space isn't the same as what they had otherwise, is there a chance of being able to peel off into some of the, the south and north little arteries?
That's to be determined as we go
Okay.
about the process
So-
with the CTEC.
All right, very good.
Yes, ma'am. Otherwise, the principal point in all of this is west of Federal Highway, east of Swinton.
Gotcha.
And we made that point clear in speaking with Mr. Allen and representatives of his organization, consistent with the direction and expectations of the commission. Likewise, we're all very comfortable to proceed, but again, my interest is to have you all to be informed
Absolutely.
first.
Commissioner Frankel.
Yeah, to the mayor's point also, there's plenty of green space with the lawn at Old School Square where there's always park, or there's always festivals or tents or green markets or whatever. There's a lot of space there that can be used. That
Duly
wouldn't
noted.
interrupt traffic.
Well,
We-
it kind of
we-
takes up the space that we used to have at Veterans Park, So now that it's down this area, they still went down the street, but Veterans Park was their, an area where they had a lot of green space that they used for this, this show as well. So maybe Old School Square would be a place that they can kind of have that spillover. Yes, ma'am.
We also have craft festivals, September, and what we did is, we used to be on 4th, they don't want us, no, somebody doesn't want us to be on 4th, so we are moving that to the green area,
Okay.
in September.
Okay, gotcha. Very good. And this is this year?
Yes,
And this would be on the campus at Old School Square?
yes,
Very good. And you've already got that already lined up?
somebody's working on it.
All right,
Not
very
me, but
good. All right, well, that
somebody,
would
yes.
be through the DDA, so I'm sure that they'll probably be most accommodating. Commissioner Boylston, or Vice Mayor Boylston?
No, I was just going to mention that we should include the DDA in that conversation. I know they are trying to minimize foot traffic on the front area of the Cornell, even with our own green market. There's discussions in regards to that, so that can have another purpose, and so I just want to make sure that we're setting expectations.
Yeah, we got a great green space that over by the garage, though.
yeah.
That, where people can walk on the cement and they set up the tents on the green space. It does minimal damage.
Yeah.
Commissioner Burns, anything?
No.
And Commissioner, Deputy Vice Mayor? Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Helene, is it?
I drove 5.5 hours to be here.
Well, we thank you so much for being
Thanks.
here, and thank you for presenting to us what the change-up would be in order to be able to accommodate the bridge situation. So
Thank
we really
you, and we
appreciate that.
appreciate being in the city, we love being here, and we want to continue this tradition of
Well,
having
it's
the
been a
art
long
festival.
tradition. 33 years is nothing
Yes.
to sneeze at. So
hard to
thank
give
you
it up.
so much for coming all the way down to speak to us today.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on to comments and inquiries. Mr. Moore?
Yes, ma'am. I actually have one, ladies and gentlemen, and that is in response to an inquiry and actually a brief news event over the weekend concerning instant air conditioning permits in one of our neighboring communities. The city of Delray Beach actually has a similar program known as walkthrough permits administered by the Department of Development Services. Our community to the north advocated in their news release that the permits for this is about a 3 to 4 day process. The city of Delray Beach actually accomplished this in less time, in about less than 3 days, sometimes even in the same amount of time or the same day in which an application is submitted. And given recent advancements in technology, we've become more efficient in this regard. And not only does the walkthrough permit program benefit air conditioning systems, but also hot water heaters and also roof repairs and replacements. So there are several facets of our program that is pretty solid and well underway, and direction is likewise to be offered to have the Department of Communications to issue more information about this capability. So it's something that we're very proud of, and it's appropriate that we make this known throughout the community given the current state of affairs relative to weather conditions and the need to be responsive in that regard. So very proud of that, and more information will be forthcoming about what's happening in the city of Delray Beach with regards to the walkthrough permit program.
Very good. Well, I know that that was something that was forthcoming for a very long period of time. We used to get a lot of complaints about how long it would take to get a permit, simple permits, through the system. Obviously, this is going to eliminate the red tape and the hassles. And just as I believe it was Mr. Long had come up here, the voice of reason, and talked about it was the first time that he had understood that this was something that was going on in our city. Many other city residents probably have no idea that it's available. So I think that if we can get this out far and wide, all the better.
Yes,
So.
ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the direction. So at this time, I yield.
Vice Mayor, did you have something you were saying? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted
Yes.
to get the three. You said roof, air conditioning, and
Hot
Air
water
conditioning
heater.
systems, hot water heaters, roof replacements and repairs.
okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, very good. So at this point in time, we're going to open up the comments to the public. If there's anybody here that would like to come up and speak on any topic other than a quasi-judicial or a public hearing item, now would be the time to speak up. You'll have 3 minutes. Make sure you state your name and your address. And just for the record, you'll have 3 minutes. Step on up.
Hi,
Hi there.
I'm Bob Cantwell, 1007 East Heritage Club. I came here today, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you, but I wanted to recognize two of your employees, Jay Stacy and Gina Carter, for the My Delray Beach app that they have implemented in the city. I hope that you're all using it. I know Angela came to a presentation that we had earlier in the week or last week. And I just wanted to tell you about the success we're having. We have over 2,000 users already using the application. Our goal is 10,000 users by the end of the year. That's pretty ambitious, I think, and I'm going to need all your help to do it because I'm making presentations to any organization that will let me come and make the presentation. So any suggestions you have, we'd love to have it. I do want to tell you about one specific instance that I had, and I'm hoping the city manager will recognize his employee for this. But on the Jazz and Art Festival, we had our tent for the DDA out in front of the Jazz and at the Jazz and Art Festival, and I noticed that there were exposed wires at some of the receptacles out on the street. And so I took out my phone, took a picture, went through the 4 steps it takes to log it in. This was at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night. I want to tell you that by 9 a.m. I got a phone call from one of your employees at the code enforcement. He was the kindest and one of the most professional individuals I've ever spoken to. He was gracious, and he told me, explained to me everything they were doing. They'd shut it down for a couple days just to do the improvements. Just in case you'd like to know who you want to recognize for it, I will send you the case number so that you can recognize that individual. Thank
Please
you
do,
guys
sir.
so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cantwell, for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, good afternoon, evening. My name is Ann Stacey Wright, 225 Southwest 7th Avenue, Delray Beach. I would like to say on behalf of the said community, we would like to say thank you to the Delray Beach Historical Society, where we hosted our first annual Spill the Tea on Health on July 16. Wendy and her staff, they went above and beyond, and we felt so welcome. Everyone was so pleased with, and I just want to say publicly, thank you, thank you, thank you. We really did have a great time there. And we look forward to next year, and also collaborating with other events within the community. We are one Delray Beach.
Thank you very much. And that's a shout out to Winnie.
Oh, absolutely. Good afternoon, I guess. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Cynthia Ridley. I live at 210 Northwest 2nd Avenue, Delray Beach. I was just listening to the education guest person who was doing the education piece of the presentation. I love what she presented. Hopefully she'll come to the community as well and present it to the community. I was looking at some of the services that she was connecting with throughout the community. And I see everything go to the Achievement Center, no shade thrown on them, but we do have a lot of child care centers in our community that works with children 3 to 5 years old as well. And I don't know how the Education Committee can start working with some of our other local child care centers. And that's a really concern to me because they are going to go from here to elementary school. And how can we help some of our local child care centers be aware of some of these programs and get some help as well from the city of Delray Beach? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes. Before I start my 3 minutes, I'd like to go ahead and give this to the board because 3
Okay,
minutes
hand it
is,
to the clerk and
Okay.
she'll pass it down to each of us.
there's 3 copies of it, so I just, okay. So my name is Adam Welsh, and I've spoken to some of the board members here, and what happened was we had a code enforcement hearing, and the above condo owner was required to rip up the floor and have it redone with a valid permit. But what she did is she got an engineer letter, and the engineer letter said the underlayment met the building code requirements. So then the building department automatically accepted the engineer letter and gave her an after the fact permit, and she did not go ahead and we've been suffering with the noise, so the city considered this complaint that we've had done and over with. But the issue is we've got a letter, we're getting a letter from the attorney from the underlayment company that said that it did not meet the building code requirements, the underlayment. The issue is the city of Delray, their building department was so fast to accept the engineer letter, they didn't even look at it. They accepted it without even looking at it, and they just automatically gave the woman an after the fact permit. And now we're suffering with the noise. So now we're getting a letter from Adam Morgan, the QEP attorney for the underlayment company, that said no, it did not meet the building code requirements. What the engineer did is they provided a picture with a cute pug that just showed the numbers were higher than 50. Both numbers, the IIC and the STC, both have to be 50 or higher to be an acceptable underlayment. However, we have a 6-inch concrete slab with no overhead ceiling. So that means that underlayment did not meet the building code requirements for that floor. And we're suffering, so therefore the city made a mistake. Now we have to get a letter from the underlayment attorney, and if you look at page 3, Adam Morgan is the attorney for QEP who's giving us a letter. So at this stage, then on top of that, we have a DBPR complaint right here. If you look at page number 5, a DBPR complaint because the city allowed a notary, a public notary, to represent the condo owner at a hearing, and she misled the city that she was an actual employee of the contractor, and she lost her license. Her license is revoked for what she did, and I just feel that the city has not worked with us. I did a 25-page report, and I hand-delivered it to Lynn Gellin, and she did not respond within the 10 working days, and I just feel the city does not care about the citizens of Delray Beach. They do not care about me, and we've been suffering with the noise, and it's to the point where I feel the city has to. Now this investigator is going to call, Mario Acosta is going to call the city and say, wait a minute, how did you, if it didn't meet the building code requirements, then how did you allow an after the fact permit? So matter of fact, the notary is the one that submitted the permit, not the contractor. So the city allowed a public notary to do what she did, to represent the condo owner, and then she lost her license in the process, and we've been suffering for over a year, and it's to the city that, we live on a first floor. And when you live on the condo owner should have pulled a permit, she didn't, and then they even submitted a drawing showing that it was 100 square feet when there was 1,000 square feet done. So this would be like 1,000 square feet, and they did a drawing for 100 square feet, 10 by 10. The city clerk didn't even look at it, just passed it. That's the problem. Once you get an engineer letter, you don't even look at it, you just automatically accept it. It's an engineer, we must accept that letter. They didn't even look, they didn't even say, wait a minute, let's pull up the condo docs, wait a minute. That underlayment doesn't go with that floor. So this is the point where if the city, the building department, Mr. Tobias, just took 2 seconds and he looked at the condo docs and said, wait a minute, this underlayment does not meet this floor. So they just looked at the cute picture of the pug, and the pug is on page, the cute picture of the pug, and they just saw the numbers were 50 or higher, and they accepted it, and they circled it. They didn't realize this did not go with the floor we have that's above us.
Okay, what was the condominium that you're in?
Delray Oaks West.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can't solve that right now. We're just listening to you. We appreciate it. We got the information. Ms. Jelen is sitting up here, so she's heard what you've said, and also the city manager. We're policymakers up here. We don't we don't run the city, all the little, everything that comes in. We don't do that from this perspective, just so
Right.
you understand, but we got it. We hear you. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Williams. I reside at 245 Northwest 8th Avenue. That's here in this great city of Delray Beach. Better known as Tammy Taxpayer. That is my pronoun. What my concerns is in reference to my 35-year here with the city of Delray. We've had a good relationship. Most of the residents here are mostly employed by the city. I had the honor of being here employed 35 years, recently retired. I contemplated returning on a part-time basis. I was instructed that it was not a very good idea for me to do. So what I'm asking of the commission, as well as to our HR director, if I could have a listing of all of the previous city employees who were afforded the opportunity to come back to work here part-time. And I wanted to see what the difference would be that I would not be afforded, or I would have been advised to not reapply. I wasn't quite sure what that was all about. I thought I had a stellar career here. Perhaps that was all in my head, because you guys know I'm in my head a lot. So what I'm asking is, can someone reach out to me via email, or I'm even probably better to speak to in person, as to why I would not have been why I would have been forewarned by one of our previous commissioners, Shirley Johnson. I've spoken with Mrs. Johnson. She said she never said that, but I was told that former city commissioner Shirley Johnson did not want me to reapply to the city as a part-time employee, an opportunity other city employees have had and had the opportunity to take part in. So if you all could look into that and someone get back to me as to why I'm not afforded that same.
Let me ask a question. Would that be requiring of a PRR? Is that normally what would happen, or is it just a call to the HR director?
It's more like a request for information. So
Okay.
either HR can handle it or somebody else, but it's more information. There's no actual document that I'm aware of that would substantiate
Answer.
what she's stating.
Yeah. In other words, there's probably nothing, Pame, that is going to be a document that shows, and they don't produce documents that way. But
Okay.
if there's no document, it'll be sent back as a PRR as they can't fill it. So the only thing I can tell you to do is I guess, if there's a knowledge of it from the HR director, that would be it. But listen, you can apply to anything you want to apply to.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody's holding you back, and I think that's kind of what you
And
should do.
it could be hearsay, but I thought something as important as my livelihood to an entity that spent 35 years, it needed to be addressed publicly. And I wanted it to be on the record.
But you're on the record.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good to see you, Ms. Williams. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Christina Morrison, 1000 Lowry Street in downtown Delray Beach. Regarding the Westway towing issue, I'm one of those unfortunate people that had a killer accident at I-95 and Atlantic Avenue recently, and I've just got to tell you that your whole crash team is unbelievable. The police, the fire, Westway Towing, they all jumped in, got us cleared up. Our car was destroyed, but we both walked away with no injuries. And the whole team was excellent, the police, fire, and Westway, so I hope you give serious consideration to renewing their contract.
Thank you.
Secondly, regarding the discussion on the maintenance and improving the grounds at Old School Square from the wear and tear of different festivals in the Green Market, just north of here, there's about 2 acres of parking that isn't used at all on the weekends. It's the parking for City Hall employees and visitors. and on the weekends it's totally empty. That area is perfect for the green market style and smallness of small events like that. And it doesn't tear up any grass. It's all paved. It's fairly shaded. There's lots of trees back there. And it's within an easy walk of Old School Square Garage and downtown shops and restaurants. So if you're trying to keep the grass nice in the grounds, and our grounds really do take a beating all over the city, this would be a way that you could still have the green market and these smaller festivals and not and maintain the grass and other green areas in the Old School Square and the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. We're at consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second. Oops, sorry.
Call the roll.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
All right, moving on to regular agenda, consideration of Mr. Moore's merit increase. This would be Mr. DeAndrea.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Dwayne DeAndre, Human Resources. So I'm up here before you in accordance with Mr. Moore's employment contract and city policy. What you have before you this evening to vote on is a 4.1% increase for Mr. Moore. This is the average of the performance evaluations which you all have submitted, I've received, and Mr. Moore has seen them.
Very good. Any questions, concerns, comments?
I'll just mention my my top two things that I really appreciate. And Mr. Moore does is one, everyone knows he's extremely organized, and he does a really good job of specifically running the city manager's office, and easy to communicate with, easy to get a hold of. But the number two thing I put in your review, and I have to say this publicly, is that when you first came on, I had made a comment that I don't see you being out in the community as a priority. We have a lot of things here in City Hall that need to be addressed, and we had a lot of holes to fill, and that was the top priority, and I was wrong. And I've seen what you do in the community. I've seen the relationships that you've made in the community with individuals, with organizations, and now I see the benefits that the city of Delray Beach gets from those relationships, and the efficiencies in the way we're able to get things done together. So I put that in your review and wanted to say that publicly, is that I do appreciate the time that you put in, and I do see the benefits for the city.
Anyone else?
Sure. I was a little bit critical in my first evaluation, and I think you took the criticisms professionally and you really improved on them. And I think you're doing a great job, Mr. Moore. You got the worst job in this city.
So true.
You can't please everyone, and I think getting to know you for the last year or two, you're a perfectionist, and I don't know how you can be a perfectionist and do what you do, but you sure do a damn good job trying to, and I think you're doing a great job. It's a position where you get a lot of heat, but you don't get a lot of praise. And I'm here to praise you, and I hope you continue to succeed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Long?
I'll keep my comments pretty short, as they were in my review, since we've only worked together for a short time. But as Vice Mayor Boylston said, I commend you for your engagement with the community. I see you out all the time, and I think that's crucial to this role. And I commend you for your professionalism, which is top notch. And I've really enjoyed our time working together in these few months, and I look forward to working together for the next several years.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and also thank you. I appreciate your professionalism, and as I said in my comments, that despite inheriting a city with numerous issues, your dedication and your commitment to turning things around is appreciated and noted. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, well, probably don't see it the same way as my colleagues. That's not unusual, so we'll just keep it at that. And we had our conversation, we had our discussion where I feel like we're falling short. put examples in there, so if anybody's interested, it's public information. But we have a 4.1% increase for your salary, and if there's no more discussion, we can make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, call the roll, please.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
All right, and
Thank you.
moving on to 7B,
Mayor,
which is,
before we move on,
Yes.
I just wanted to bring something up, an idea I had, and it seemed like it might make sense under this discussion item before we move on, if the
which one? The
commission
one
will
that we
humor me.
just at?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
yep.
I wanted to propose amending our pension ordinance as it relates to our two direct reports, our city attorney and our city manager. I'd like staff to look into bringing forward an ordinance that changes the vesting period for these two positions, as benefits like this help us to keep and retain good talent and eventually recruitment if it comes up. I understand we have a pension council and staff that could advise the commission and make proposed changes consistent with other municipalities in the direction we ultimately give them. So that's something I would like to maybe get the commission's consensus on, at least exploring as an idea. I think continuity is important, and I think talent retention is important, and something I wanted to bring to the commission.
What are you proposing?
Like I said, the
vesting period.
The vesting period,
What is it? What
right.
is it? What are you proposing in the vesting period? The change. What are you looking for?
that we have a vesting period for these two employees.
Isn't there a vesting period?
There is
currently?
a vesting period, but here's what I know what happens in other cities, just based on my my length as a public pension trustee. I believe some cities are 20 or 25 years. I guess what you're wanting to know is if other cities have a lower, and they do. Right. I've seen 15 years just to make it more beneficial. It's a way to keep those positions around longer, and I certainly would support that.
Right. When I looked into ours, it didn't seem like it was very competitive with other cities, and that's why I wanted to begin the conversation to see where we stood with other cities simply, and then go from there.
Here's my angle on this, or my thoughts on it. We haven't had an issue of retaining. We've released people from these two positions. It hasn't been that they've walked away. They weren't working out for the position. So I'm not so sure that it's a retention issue that we're losing them as much as it is that we have found ourselves in situations in the past where there was something that was untenable that we could not live with, that we've had to let go of different city managers and also city attorneys. So I don't know that actually is something that makes all the difference in the world. So I don't know why. I'm not sure how that will affect.
Regardless of the past reasons that we've had city managers leave, I think now that we have a city manager that the majority of this commission agrees is doing a great job, and a city attorney that I think the majority of this commission would agree is doing a great job, it would behoove us to retain them and have a competitive.
Are they saying they're going to leave because of our vesting?
Not that I know of, but why? I wouldn't want to wait until they get a competitive offer.
I'll just jump in. It's as extreme. I need to learn way more about this subject before obviously making any decisions. So
same.
But I'll tell you that it's an extremely competitive market out there, both in the private and the public sector. The more money cities have, and we're seeing it. We're seeing in our contracts. We're seeing in our negotiations. We've had to obviously make a lot of adjustments here as well to stay competitive. At my own company, we take a proactive approach. We don't wait till we're losing people. We address that proactively, so we're never in that position. Being that we are in a city where it only takes 3 commissioners to make a change in those 2 positions, which doesn't exactly send a message out into the world that is I would say if we ever did have to fill the seat, it's not ideal. And that doesn't look like it's going to be changing. I would take a look at it. If it is a competitive advantage, or if it is an opportunity for us to ensure that we have the best package possible to hold on to the people that we have. But again, I don't know anything about, very little about that subject as far as the pension.
And me neither.
And yeah, so
And that's why I'm simply just suggesting that we explore it, same as we're exploring our contract with the, we're at the exploration begun with our fire department contract, for instance, and we've been exploring how ours relates to other cities, municipalities. So why not go down the same track with this?
Sure, thank you. Lynn, would it be wise to maybe inquire with Pedro, who is the pension counsel, to find out what other municipalities are doing, what the time requirements are, and get that information?
you know what? I'll say that meeting, I've only ever, I think, had one meeting on that subject, so that would be a productive meeting, I think, for all of us to have, especially Deputy Vice Mayor Long and Commissioner Burns just joining the team here. So, and I would very much like to have that meeting, touch on that subject and related topics.
And I will support that as well.
All right, you've got your direction.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to 7B, fiscal year 2023-24 proposed capital improvement plan. Discussion. Ms. Barletto is going to be. More than Ms. Barletto.
Okay, I'll wait for you right here. Right here next to me.
We got the power team in front of us, I see.
It's Missy and my backup singers.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Love it.
Missy Barletto and the Pips.
They are Pips, it's true. Good evening, Missy Barletto, Public Works Director. Along with me, I have Sam Mitat, the Parks and Recreation Director, and Hassan Hajamiri, the Utilities Director. And we are here to present the CIP budget for you and to give you an opportunity to talk with us about it, evaluate it. If there are things that you would like to see changed in the plan that we have provided to you. The first thing I'm going to discuss with you is the plans that have already been made since the presentation that we gave you on July 11th. This is your second opportunity to have a bite at the apple. And then on September 5th, we'll bring it back for a final adoption. So since the last time that we talked, I don't know if I'm getting on the microphone or not, there have been a few changes. In the building fund, we increased that amount from $2 million to $4 million. This will be used to make adjustments on the north end of City Hall to both structural and in the way that we configure different departments in order to give the city some growing room for the next several years. This is not a permanent solution. It's a solution that will get us through the next several years. In the general fund, we had put into the budget a significant amount of money, over $500,000 for air conditioner replacements at the Crest Theater. We were able to repair all of the air conditioners at the Crest Theater, and they are functional. And we're confident that we are able to take the funds that were available for that and reallocate them to be able to complete the parking lot project at the Delray Beach Historical Society, along with some other requests that they had put in last year. And we'll meet with them, so there's some extra dollars in there to be able to do both the parking lot and maybe some electrical improvements to assist them in their special events and that sort of thing. At the fleet division, we added in fuel dispenser replacements. Our fleet software for our fuel dispensing absolutely has to be updated. The software we're using is no longer supported, so we'll have to purchase new software for that. And the last thing on this list is a wheel alignment piece of equipment that we are going to recommend as of this evening that we remove that wheel alignment equipment and replace that with improvements to the Neighborhood Resource Center that was the object of the discussion during the workshop meeting earlier. In the water and sewer fund, there was a slight increase in budget. The deep well injection well piping and GBT at the South County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant increased from $1.25 million to $2 million. In the stormwater utility, there also was an increase in budget because we are spending $100,000 that was not in the budget before on a coastal resiliency adaptation plan. That fund, that amount is 100% matched by the state of Florida Department of Environmental Protection through a Resilient Florida grant. So that's a wash. It's just there to make sure that it shows in the budget. In the city garage, we have an overall decrease in the budget because we have removed a sewer vac truck that is scheduled for replacement this year from an outright purchase, and we're adding that into the capital lease purchase proposal that we'll talk about in more detail at the very end of this presentation. And there was a slight increase in the amount of the street sweeper from $310,000 to $315,000. So this is the same slide that you saw before. The total CIP budget has gone up from $109 million to $110 million to reflect the increase in the deep well injection cost for the South County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. Other than that, the percentages per department stayed relatively the same. So we're going to go through this budget by budget, fund by fund, so it will take a little bit of time. I apologize in advance. For the Special Projects Fund, Fund 115, there are two items that are coming out of this. There is tree planting in the amount of $325,000 that funds the Sustainability Office's annual tree planting program. And then parking technology improvements, there is a placeholder here for $1 million to implement the phone app and being able to see where parking is available in the downtown area before coming to the downtown area. That includes placing sensors in parking spaces, and we recently gave a presentation on that project. Recreation Impact Fund belongs to Parks and Rec.
All right. So this is why I always say this is the fun department, because we get to build really fun stuff, right? So 117 recreation impact fees. Again, these are the impact fees. Many of you have been familiar with this. We've done a lot of work in the playground area with this over the last few years. But these are some of the projects we're looking at. That is a park pavilion replacement. Just going through all of our park system, you'd be surprised how many pavilions when you start adding up 2-3 pavilions every park, and they do need replacement, many of which haven't been for a long time. So pavilions are pretty costly, actually. $100,000 gets you 2 small ones or maybe 1 big one. But to try to add that in a consistent basis over the coming years so that we have a plan for replacement. Playground updates, different than a new playground. Playground update is simply having the funds available to replace broken parts or something that may be rusted out, or if possible, maybe we can put a small shade over a smaller playground, but that's the playground updates component. Pine Grove playground improvements, there's a pretty big number there. That is for a new playground. If you haven't visited Pine Grove recently, there is playground equipment there, but it's a very small apparatus. It's not much of a playground, but I think that park in that community, especially with all the improvements going on, that really deserves a substantial playground, and I think that's what we do there with that number. Next is a restroom trailer. Restroom trailer would be what we would call a crowd pleaser. We rent them for many of our events. We use them at our youth football programs and different construction sites. I know, I'll jump in quick, the mayor's kind of questioned that one before, but one of our thought processes is that we spend about $20,000 a year as is for all the events and standard stuff, And with the amount of construction projects and renovations to our bathrooms in the coming years, we think it's a good way of being able to bring that out to those sites and alleviate some of those concerns. The community center AC replacements is a little self-explanatory. A new scoreboard for Hilltopper, and then out in the future, a couple years, is planning for a new mobile stage, which ours is a little dated and out of service. All right. The next item is the maintenance of park medians. This is in response to some previous budget discussions here, where we added additional levels of funding into the park maintenance, specifically for medians, to help improve those areas.
So in Fund 120 is revenue that the city receives through the gas tax. We have 2 projects in there for the coming year. We have the Andrews Avenue Complete Streets, finishing out the design of that. The extent of that project is from Vista Del Mar to Atlantic Avenue. It does not go all the way to George Bush. And then we will continue doing our public right-of-way ADA improvements. In this particular budget, you'll see that in fiscal year 25, we have the construction for the Andrews Avenue Complete Streets programs. At that point, this project will move out of the gas tax because we only get around $500,000 a year into the city for that. But the gas tax will continue to fund our ADA transition plan, which makes sure that we have a walkable city. And we touched on this earlier. The building fund will be looking at implementing $4 million in improvements in the north end of City Hall to benefit the planning and zoning department, the building department, neighborhood and community services, reconfiguring that end of City Hall to accommodate new employees and existing employees. For the beach restoration, this is a separate fund. We get partial match for some of our expenses in the beach restoration area through the Department of Environmental Protection from the state. But this fund includes things such as dune management, sea turtle nest monitoring, beach nourishment monitoring, which every year we do a pre-hurricane season contour of the beach and a post-season contour of the beach that we provide to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We pay for our annual Blue Flag application fee out of this fund. We repair the showers, the benches, we buy beach buckets, we do all of these things out of this fund. And if you'll look into the FY 25-26, you'll see that we have marked $5 million. That is because we've received a positive project implementation report from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers just in the last week that says that they will be doing a full contour beach renourishment project on our public beach in FY 25 as a result of damages we received from Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole. So between those two, we had a sand loss that will bring the Corps of Engineers back in FY 25-26 to replace that. The $5 million that you see there on the city side of it is for us to place advanced sand, which makes the beach wider and protects our beach for a longer period of time in order to prevent them from needing to come back and do renourishment activities more frequently. So the general construction fund is funded in a few different ways. Some of the funds in this come from the general fund. This is also where we represent CRA funded projects and also transportation planning agency projects for mobility projects through that agency. So on here in this area, you see the Pompey Park Community Center, the Northwest Neighborhood improvements. In Northwest Neighborhood, we will complete doing the design of those improvements this year, and as you can see in FY25, we'll be starting on construction in that neighborhood. Additionally, we have $300,000 for Artist Alley drainage improvements. This was initially part of the Northeast 3rd Street streetscape project that was removed, and those drainage problems have gotten worse with the construction that's going on in that area. So TPA sponsored projects, you've seen all of these before. We'll be starting construction on the Lindell Boulevard, bicycle and pedestrian improvements. The design will begin for where we just completed Brant Bridge construction. We'll be making a connection from that project out to Lindell Boulevard. So we call that the Lindell Loop project, so that there's a connection from that Brant Bridge project all the way out to Lindell Boulevard. And then the first phase of Barwick Road improvements, which are between Atlantic Avenue and Lake Ida Road, construction will be starting on that this year. And we're looking at we're completing design for Old Germantown Road improvements, bicycle and pedestrian improvements there, as well as finishing the Lowson Boulevard project by placing the pedestrian bridge. I neglected to mention that in this heat wave, you probably all know half a dozen people whose air conditioners have broken because they can't keep up with the heat. We're in that group too. We have a lot of broken air conditioners around the city. So we will be starting to put in an annual amount for air conditioner replacements. Many of ours are beyond their expected lifespan. So here we find the Delray Beach Historical Society campus improvements. We're also putting in a regular recurring expense annually for personal computer replacements, which has not had a placeholder in the budget for several years, and we need to make that a recurring expense. And then at the fleet division, we also discussed this, the fuel dispenser replacement, the software update, and then we will be replacing the wheel alignment equipment with the Neighborhood Resource Center improvements. Did I go too far? No, it doesn't like me. It does this to me every time. All right, here we go. So now we're on to infrastructure surtax, or as most people like to call it, the 1 penny sales tax. Annually, we have been doing roadway improvement in the city of Delray Beach to the tune of about $2.5 million. In the coming year, our pavement conditions index is up for renewal, and we are going to be changing to a different type of technology. So in the past, the way that we did pavement condition index was a pickup truck that looked like the Clampetts had come to town with all kinds of equipment hanging off the sides of it and underneath it and all over it, that just drove every inch of roadway within the city. What we're actually moving to is a software program that we will be we'll have on our individual computers, and each city vehicle will be outfitted with sensors underneath it, so that we will have a continuous refreshing of that pavement condition index, and we will always have up-to-date information about where our biggest problems are and where our attention needs to be focused. So we'll be finishing up in February, hopefully. That's the date that we're scheduled for the improvements to the train depot, which we also discussed in the not too distant past. The replacement of Fire Station 113 will be bringing you on September 5th the guaranteed maximum price, which is a presentation for the commission. It's a stop-go point in that contract where you can decide whether you want to move forward with the construction of the fire department under the current contract or whether you want to put a stop on it and do something different. I think you'll be pleased with the numbers that have been presented to us. Gulfstream Boulevard streetscape improvements. You may or may not know that the city boundary goes right down the center of Gulfstream Boulevard. The westbound lanes belong to Boynton Beach. The eastbound lanes belong to Delray Beach. We have an interlocal agreement with Boynton Beach to make improvements to that roadway this coming year. They have put in a grant application to reduce everyone's costs on that, but if the grant is not successful, this $2 million will be the city's portion of that roadway improvement. And we'll also be starting on the North Swinton Avenue roadway improvements and utility improvements in the coming year. Swinton and Atlantic intersection improvements is on here because I know it's important to you. We are asking for no money for that in the coming year. We're in the process right now of selecting a consultant to do the design of that, and that is funded in the current fiscal year. So we have no need for funding in the next fiscal year, but we will begin construction on that in fiscal year 25, and so that's why it's showing here. The infrastructure surtax. Several years ago, we took out a loan against these funds as they come in. The debt service for repayment of that loan is $3.5 million. In addition to that debt service, we're still bringing in about $5 million a year into this fund for future improvements. So while we have quite a bit in this fund this year, that number in the next several years will be diminishing. Hassan?
That's great. Good afternoon. Do I need this or not? The first item is Marine Way seawall. That's to install a new. It's better now? There we go. Thank you. The first item is Marine Way seawall. That's to install a new water main and a force main as part of the larger project that the public work is involved in that area for $500,000 on this estimate. Membrane softening plant, that's our new nanofiltration that next week we are going to receive the submittal from the firm as part of their qualification packages. So we are moving along. We're hoping that by next year this time, hopefully we'll be before you with the maybe some better number as far as the cost of the new water plant after they have done the preliminary design. The water treatment plant improvement, this is for existing water treatment plant that we have. We still need to run that plant for many, many more years. So we are trying to replace most of the aged equipment and put a lot of control and remote monitoring system in that water plant. New wells, city has 30 production wells. Those wells are probably close to 20 to 40 years old. We are planning to replace 6 of those wells within the next 3 years. Upgrade to telemetry system or supervisory control and data acquisition system. That's what the SCADA is there for. That is to again put a fully computerized system in place that will also be used with the new water plant that is being constructed. So only a small portion of it is for 2023 for the existing water plant. The rest of it will be in conjunction with the new water plant that will be constructed. South Central Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, deep injection well, and gravity built thickener. That's the one that originally our estimate was $1,250,000. We just received the bids for the piping itself is about $1 million, and the cost also for installing the gravity built thickener and the part itself we think is going to be around $1 million also. So that's worth it. By the way, we only paying the half of the portion because City of Boynton Beach also is batching the same dollar amount that we will be spending. South pump generator replacement. This is actually a south tank, if you have heard in the past. This is the water storage tank at the water treatment plant site. And we are replacing a generator because we operate our system during the emergency. 100% of the system is running on generator. So we actually do not need FPL to run our system because during the emergency, one of the first things that we experience is the interruption in the water service. I'm sorry, in the power service. Water meter replacement. This is for individual and all the accounts that we have, nearly 18,000, 19,000 meters throughout the city. We are planning to replace all those meters. They are between 8 to 10 years old. Besides losing their efficiencies, typically after 10 years, they lose about 5 to 10% of their efficiency. So that has an effect on our revenue. And also we're hoping to get a much better metering and communication system in place compared to what we have had. We have encountered many problems with the meters, the way they communicate back and forth. So that is why we decided to expedite this process at least a year or so. Originally it was supposed to be done in 2026. So we're trying to hopefully get it done sooner. VFDs, variable frequency drive, those are all the electrical and electronic equipment that runs both of those pump stations, north and the south. The south is at the water plant, the north is just behind the city attorney's office. So we are completely redoing all the electrical system on those. Those are again over 30 years old and in dire needs of replacement. Replacement of the fluoride and phosphate chemical tanks, those are needs to be done again because of the age, and those are high hazard chemical that we need to make sure that we have a proper tank for them. Water treatment plant filter valve actuator replacement. We have 8 filters, and each one has one actuator, replacing all those. So again, most of these we're doing because the treatment plant is just need lot of work, and most of this should have been done in the past. Force main 50. Force main is a pipeline that carries the wastewater, raw sewage. This one, it goes from pump station 50 to wastewater treatment plant. Pump station 50 is our master wastewater pump station for the city of Delray Beach. All the wastewater basically goes to that, and from there it gets pumped to the wastewater plant. The cost is to replace that entire pipeline, or actually put in a parallel pipeline in case of emergency, so we can use it. These are costly, but when anything happened to that pipeline, there is no way for the city to convey their wastewater to the treatment plant. Replacement of utilities generator. These are for the utilities has 130 wastewater lift stations throughout the city that collect the wastewater and pump it to Pump Station 50 and ultimately to the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, we have 60 generators, and some of these generators, that's what they're telling me, it was handed down to us after Hurricane Andrew from Miami-Dade, and we have purchased some. So those are very, very old, and generator is something that when you need it, you really need it. So we are planning to at least buy 4 to 5 generators a year, so we can have it newer of the generators on hand when we need them. Reclaimed water area and connecting some of the major users, that just $100,000. This is for the design we put in for this year, and after that, hopefully, spending $1 million a year. We have a long way to go to meet our reclaimed water supply, actually. As I mentioned a couple years ago when I gave the briefing, based on a permit that was issued back in 2008, City of Boynton and Delray Beach, we have to reach to a certain number of the reclaimed water. I think ours is close to 4 million gallons per day, and right now we are at the 2.1, 2.2. And the major reclaimed water users look like they're disappearing, mainly the golf courses. So we have to look for the innovative way to actually produce those reclaimed water. And Mr. Mittal has offered me all his parks and medians, so anyhow, that's one project that we're working on. Upgrade to the GIS system. This is just for the record that we have for the utilities. We call it as-built, and those are extremely, extremely important when there is an emergency. We need that to see where the pipes are, how deep are they, what material are they, and I'm not too happy to state that we don't have a great record system, and that's why we're going with this, hopefully with the GIS. I already have 2 people in my staff that they're working full-time to make sure that all those data are electronically available and available to our staff when they go to the field. They will take the laptop, they can access it as-built in the field rather than send somebody to office and go dig through the blueprints and find out what's there. The next 7 items actually are not for 23, 24, but if you would like, I can go through them. If not, our total for 23, 24 is nearly $32 million.
Hello again. Just shifting to the municipal golf course. There's 2 items we're looking at for the next fiscal year. One is the removal and replacement of an underground fuel tank to be replaced with an above-ground fuel tank. And the next is something we've discussed prior, and that's the designated funding source for the historic golf course restoration projects. And then you'll see a number of items in the future year that we're looking to plan out from the enterprise fund here at the Delray Beach Municipal Golf Course. Then over at Lakeview are some things we can work on quickly, and that is some golf cart path repair, and that's just asphalt updating of our cart paths, some new golf course equipment, mowers, greens equipment, etc., and a new golf cart barn. Last year we were lucky enough to get a whole new fleet of golf carts, so the barn itself actually needs some renovations. And then, of course, in the future, planning for some clubhouse renovations over there at Lakeview.
Okay, in the stormwater fund, we have some of our bigger projects coming up in the coming year. We'll be starting on the Thomas Street Pump Station rebuild. Some of that that project is matched by a state of Florida resiliency grant. We have a $20 million grant to do that over the next couple of years. The historic marine way seawall roadway and drainage improvements, a long time coming. We look forward to starting construction on that in the coming year with $7.1 million in improvements planned over the coming year, with in addition to the $500,000 for utility improvements there. The Coastal Resiliency Adaptation Plan we discussed at the very beginning of the presentation. That is a 100% match from the Florida Resiliency Grant. And then Tropic Isle neighborhood improvements. We are not asking for additional dollars for that this year as we continue to complete the design for that project, and we'll be beginning the construction of those improvements in the following year. Each of these projects is matched by the resiliency grants from the state of Florida to the tune of about $35 million from the state. We are beginning to, with the implementation of the new stormwater utility assessment and the increased revenues that we are getting from that, we are beginning the replacement of the remainder of the city's seawalls. As you know, the city itself owns about a mile of seawall throughout our boundary. We have done about a third of that between Veterans Park, the Marina, and Marine Way projects, and we'll be looking at increasing the rest of the seawall heights, starting with the lowest and moving our way up. And that'll be a recurring charge until we're done with all of them. On Lakeview Drive, there have been consistent drainage issues between the Lakeview Golf Course and the community. We'll be looking at implementing some drainage improvements in there that are long overdue and much needed. Excuse me. And then also in the coming year, finally I get to say something fun. We're planning on a stormwater education project in cooperation with the Public Art Board to do a call for artists to paint stormwater inlets in the downtown area to let people know that they shouldn't throw cigarette butts there or other types of garbage, that the water that goes into those inlets in the downtown area goes straight out to the ocean. So that is another one. In all, in order to meet our ability to make the matching funds for all of these grants that we've been able to achieve, in addition to the increased revenue from the stormwater utility assessment, we will be coming to you in the next year looking at going to the state revolving loan fund for an additional loan to cover those expenses in the amount of about $5.5 million. And the debt service for that loan will be covered through the stormwater fund.
This one's very straightforward. I think you've seen this in previous CIP projects, and this is the completion of the cemetery mausoleum over at the municipal cemetery.
And last but certainly not least, we come to the City Garage Fund. In the coming year, we have $1.75 million set aside for vehicle replacements, which individual departments pay in when they get a new vehicle. They pay into this fund on an annual basis for the day in which the new car that they just got needs to be replaced, so that there is money in a fund available to replace that vehicle. During COVID, we did not fund these vehicle replacements for a couple of years, leaving this fund in a deficit situation. And we are working to rebuild this fund over the next several years. One of the ways that we're doing that is to look at purchasing our heavy equipment, our fire engines and our heavy equipment for for road work and that sort of thing, in a capital lease purchase program, and I'll talk more about that in the next couple of slides. In the coming year, we're looking at funding the 1.75 for vehicle replacement out of the general fund, and then also looking at a capital lease purchase of just under $4 million. The debt payment for that is also included in this fund. So before we get all the way to the well, we'll save the capital lease purchase discussion for the very end, because I think that'll be a lively discussion.
Real quick, this will be the introduction to the CIP projects that include the bond that was approved. And here's a breakdown of the high-level projects we're looking at. Many of them was from your input, and that is renovations to all of our public restrooms citywide, some